The actual face of Jesus, you have only one object, and that's the shroud. It's the only object that can actually purport to be the actual image of Jesus with any kind of credibility whatsoever.
A new quantum AI analysis of the Shroud of Turin has revealed a terrifying secret. For decades, we've argued if it's a painting or a miracle, but the AI's data shows it's neither. It's something far stranger. The AI found no paint. Instead, it found a scorch-like image created by an instantaneous burst of radiation. This energy was so immense and so precise that it encoded a perfect three-dimensional map of the man onto the cloth. The terrifying part? The AI concluded this energy burst was the result of the body dematerializing what the computer saw. For more than a century, scientists have pointed every tool they have at the Shroud of Turin. High-powered microscopes, X-ray machines, and advanced chemical tests have all tried to crack its code, but every answer only led to more questions. You see, the shroud, a mysterious 14-foot-long piece of linen, bears the faint, haunting image of a man who appears to have undergone crucifixion. For believers, it is the sacred burial cloth of Jesus. For skeptics, it's the most clever forgery in human history. Many people are crazy about this relic, but the debate has always been stuck. The thing nobody tells you is that both sides had a problem. Skeptics couldn't explain how it was faked, and believers couldn't explain how it was formed. Recently, a team of physicists and data scientists decided to unleash a new kind of mind on this ancient puzzle: a quantum artificial intelligence. This wasn't just a faster computer. A quantum computer can analyze trillions of possibilities at once, seeing patterns in data that would take a normal supercomputer thousands of years to find. They fed this AI every piece of data ever collected on the Shroud: ultra-high-resolution scans, chemical analyses from the 1970s, X-ray fluorescence data, and microscopic images of individual fibers. They asked it one question: what created this image? The AI's primary analysis confirmed what many researchers had long suspected. There is absolutely no paint, dye, or pigment on the cloth that could account for the body image. The image exists only on the topmost microfibers of the linen, a layer so incredibly thin it's less than 1/5 the diameter of a human hair. A painter would have to paint individual threads, which is impossible, and the liquid would have seeped through. It didn't. But then the AI went deeper. It confirmed the image is not just a two-dimensional picture, it's a three-dimensional map. The AI found a perfect mathematical correlation. The darker the image is in a certain spot, the closer that part of the body would have been to the cloth. What many overlooked is that this is impossible for an artist to create. No painter in the medieval era or even today could have crafted an image that perfectly encodes 3D information. This is a wow factor that has stumped scientists for 50 years. When scientists in the 1970s ran a photo of the shroud through a VP8 image analyzer, a device NASA used to map the moon, it produced a flawless three-dimensional relief of a human form. Any other painting or photograph results in a distorted, grotesque mess. This is where the AI's discovery turned terrifying. The AI found something else, something hidden that previous tests missed. It detected a residual energy signature woven into the very atomic structure of the linen. This wasn't just a simple scorch mark. The AI identified what physicists are calling a quantum echo. It's a pattern suggesting the image was formed by an instantaneous, massive burst of radiation that came from within the body. This burst of light and energy was so powerful and so brief, lasting mere nanoseconds, that it discolored the cloth fiber by fiber, encoding that three-dimensional information with impossible precision. The AI's model suggests this energy event was unlike anything known to modern physics. It was a controlled, directional burst that defied the normal laws of thermodynamics. But that wasn't even the most shocking part. The AI found a second image, a quantum signature underneath the visible one. This second layer wasn't visible to the naked eye or even to most scientific instruments. It was an information pattern encoded in the quantum state of the carbon atoms in the linen. The AI could only describe it as an imprint of transition. The simulation suggested that at the moment the radiation burst occurred, the body inside the shroud was in a state of flux, existing as both matter and energy simultaneously. The physicists on the team were speechless. The machine was describing an event that sounded like science fiction. It was describing a body dematerializing. This discovery was the first clue that the shroud wasn't just a relic, it was the record of an event that science has no explanation for. This quantum echo changed everything, but it also confirmed a discovery made by a lawyer over 100 years ago. The lawyer and the photograph. To understand how terrifying the AI's discovery truly is, you have to look at the history of the shroud's mystery. This isn't some new age artifact, it's been stumping the world's best minds for generations. The story of its scientific scrutiny began in 1898 with an Italian lawyer and amateur photographer named Secondo Pia. Pia was given permission to photograph the shroud during a rare public exhibition. When he took the first ever photograph, he expected a simple record of the cloth. But in his darkroom, as the photographic plate developed, a ghostly positive image of a man's face emerged from the negative. He was so shocked he almost dropped the plate. The world was stunned. How could a centuries-old cloth contain a perfect photographic negative? This was a concept that wouldn't be understood for hundreds of years. This discovery, this photographic ghost, is what kicked off the scientific frenzy. It took until 1978 for the next great leap. A team of 33 American scientists calling themselves the Shroud of Turin Research Project, or STURP, was granted unprecedented access. They spent 120 hours conducting non-stop tests. They brought in infrared spectrometers, X-ray machines, and ultraviolet scanners. They were convinced they would prove it was a brilliant fake, a masterpiece of medieval art. After years of analyzing the data, they came to a shocking conclusion. The image was not a painting. They found no brushstrokes, no pigments, no binders. They famously stated the shroud image is that of a real human form of a scourged, crucified man. It is not the product of an artist. But they found something else. They found real human blood. The stains on the cloth were tested and confirmed to be type AB blood. What's more, the blood stains were underneath the body image, meaning the blood was on the cloth before the mysterious energy burst that created the man's form. The blood acted like a shield and the fibers under the blood were not discolored. This proved the two events were separate. The STURP team was baffled. They proved what the shroud wasn't, but they had no idea what it was. They left Turin with more questions than answers. The shroud was a paradox, a photographic negative with 3D information and real human blood, but no paint. Science was at a dead end. But just 10 years later, one single test seemed to solve the entire mystery and declare the shroud a fraud. Why the test was wrong. In 1988, the Vatican, the shroud's keepers, agreed to one more test. This was the big one, carbon-14 dating. The test was designed to be definitive. 3 of the world's top laboratories in Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona were each given a tiny sample cut from the corner of the shroud. The world held its breath. The results came back with 95% certainty. The linen dated from between 1260 and 1390 AD. The case, it seemed, was closed. The shroud was a medieval fake. A clever, inexplicable, but ultimately fake forgery. News outlets around the world ran headlines, "The Shroud of Turin is a hoax." But not all things are what they seem. Almost immediately, scientists, including some on the original STURP team, questioned the results. What many overlooked is where the sample was taken from. It was cut from the very edge of the cloth. This specific corner was known to have been damaged in a fire in 1532. After the fire, nuns had repaired the cloth by sewing a patch of new linen onto the original, and they rewove the edges to strengthen it. The scientists had warned the Vatican not to use this repaired corner, but they were ignored. Years later, chemical and microscopic analysis of leftover threads from that exact sample revealed cotton fibers interwoven with the original linen. This invisible medieval patch is what the labs had dated, not the ancient cloth itself. The thing nobody tells you is that other evidence flatly contradicts the medieval date. The pollen found on the shroud comes from plants that only grow in the region of Jerusalem. The weave of the linen itself is a 3-to-1 herringbone style, common in the 1st century, but virtually unknown in medieval Europe. The shroud was back to being a paradox. It had 1st century pollen and a 1st century weave, but a 14th century carbon date from a contaminated sample. This is the chaotic, contradictory battlefield of evidence the quantum AI stepped into. It wasn't just looking at an old cloth, it was analyzing a scientific civil war where every clue pointed in a different direction. The AI's job was to find the truth, and its conclusion presents a reality that is truly terrifying. Matter and energy. So what does this all mean? For centuries, the debate around the Shroud of Turin has been a simple binary choice. It's either a divine miracle or a clever human forgery. You were either a believer or a skeptic. There was no middle ground. For decades, skeptics clung to the carbon-14 dating from 1988, the test that placed the cloth firmly in the Middle Ages. They said, case closed, it's a fake. But now a quantum AI has entered the chat, and its analysis hasn't just muddied the waters, it's completely changed the ocean. The AI has presented a third option, one that is far more mysterious and frankly terrifying. People watching this are likely looking for a simple answer. Is it real or not? But the thing is, there isn't one. The AI's analysis, with its talk of a quantum echo and an imprint of transition, has effectively vaporized the medieval forgery theory. Let's be perfectly clear. Think about what that theory actually implies. It means an artist in the 13th or 14th century, a man with pigments made from ground-up rocks and brushes made of horsehair, somehow created an image that is a perfect photographic negative, an image that contains three-dimensional data, an image that is encoded onto the fibers of the cloth at a microscopic level. The AI found no paint, no dye, no brush strokes, no directionality. Instead, it found an image seared onto the cloth by what it calls a collimated burst of high-frequency radiation. No artist in the 13th century had the knowledge of physics, mathematics, and quantum mechanics needed to create such an artifact. The level of sophistication is beyond even our current technology. We cannot replicate the Shroud of Turin today, not with all our advanced lasers and supercomputers. The AI's conclusion on this point was absolute. The 1988 carbon dating must be wrong. The data from the image itself proves the cloth must have been subjected to an energy event so powerful it contaminated the sample, making the carbon dating totally useless. So if it wasn't a fake, what is it? Are we missing a key detail? The AI's data leaves us staring at two unthinkable, reality-shattering possibilities. The first is that an ancient civilization, long lost to history, possessed a level of technology that equals or even surpasses our own. A civilization that understood the relationship between matter and energy. A society that could engineer controlled bursts of radiation to record information on a quantum level. This idea, while fascinating, has zero evidence to support it. It would mean our entire understanding of human history, our linear progression from caves to computers, is fundamentally wrong. The second possibility is even more profound. What if the event recorded on the Shroud is exactly what the biblical accounts describe? A resurrection. This is where it gets chilling. The AI simulation, with its burst of inexplicable energy and its imprint of transition from matter to energy, aligns unnervingly well with the concept of a human body transcending its physical form. That imprint of transition the AI keeps mentioning, it's the physical signature of matter, converting into energy. A flash of light and radiation so intense, yet so perfectly controlled, it burned a negative image of a body onto the cloth, but didn't destroy the cloth itself. This isn't a matter of faith, but of data. The AI, a machine with no religious bias, no dogma, and no concept of God, analyzed the physical evidence. It concluded that the image was formed by an event that breaks the known laws of physics, an event where matter was converted into energy. The Shroud, in this context, becomes a literal snapshot of that moment, a photograph of the impossible. For years, we've treated the Shroud of Turin as a historical artifact, a forensic problem to be solved. But this approach is flawed. What if the Shroud isn't a puzzle at all? It might be stark, undeniable evidence that our fundamental understanding of reality is deeply and dangerously incomplete. The AI didn't solve the mystery. It just proved that the mystery is real. It took all the data, all the physics, all the chemistry, and its final conclusion was, this should not exist. So what do you think? Is the Shroud of Turin a message from a lost high-tech civilization, or is it the physical proof of a miracle? Let us know your theory in the comments, And don't forget to like and subscribe for more answers to the world's greatest mysteries.